Okay, guys, welcome to this morning's Sunday Slot. So this morning's Sunday Slot, we've got Paul Shamplina. Now, most people will know Paul from Channel 5's Slum Landlords and Tenants from Hell. So we're going to bring on Paul. We're going to talk about, how did he end up in this position? Where did he come from? And what floats his boat? Well, we're off air there now, and he's talking about boxing being a big, big thing for him as well. So we might even cover that as well. You get your golden opportunity to ask questions as well from Paul, if anybody knows of his background. It is a legal. He spent 28 years in the legal field helping landlords and problem tenants with previous experience as a clerk, private investigator, debt collector and certified bailiff. Not a man to be messed with. Hi, Paul. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Hi, Jim. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I got up this morning and it's snowing. Although
so your background is not a true reflection of where you are in Fife, Jim.
Oh no, genuinely, I'm sitting in some summer solstice.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so, it's actually quite sunny here, actually, but cold. I'm in North London.
Yeah, so let me talk about this. Where Paul Shamplina, who is he? What's he all about? Let's bring you back to, because I always like to talk about. I mean, you've had some success, and you might not categorize it as success, but I would categorize it as success. So I always like to talk about in the Sunday Slot about how that success has come about, and where did you let anything hold you back? So let's go back to the very beginning. I know you were born at an early age, like most people. Primary school. What was it like for you?
Primary school, I was one of these kids. I was never academic. I had short attention span. Used to just mess about. No, I wasn't unruly or anything like that. I just loved playing football. I was just like a normal kid. I wasn't academic, But yeah, at primary school, I went to two different primary schools because I moved around a bit. So I was from North London. I lived in a place called Kenton, which is near Wembley. And then I moved to a place called East Grinstead, which was near Gatwick Airport. And then secondary school, age at 14, because I moved another school. I lived in Brighton for 5 years, then moved back to London. So I've lived at quite a few places, really. So my primary school and secondary school stages, I went to various different schools.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So primary school for you was a bit of a breeze then, do you think?
No, well, listen, I can't, you know what? I've got a really bad memory, really. It was, I was just a normal kid. It was a bit of a breeze, really. Yeah, it was, school was school, like any kid. I said, my kids, I got my boy of 15, a girl of 11. They're both, she's just hit secondary school. You got to go to school in the morning. No kid wants to go to school, but you do.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
my primary school, every report card used to say to me, he's a bit of a dreamer. And I thought, and now I think to myself, a bit of a dreamer. Oh, thanks very much. It's kind of looked at as a compliment now, because it's usually dreamers that actually change the world.
We all dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that's an important thing in a childhood?
Definitely. One thing that I had, even though I wasn't academic, I was terrible at exams, and we can talk about secondary school. I literally left school with no qualifications whatsoever. The best thing I ever did at secondary school was actually typing. And I only did that because it was a room full of girls. I was the only boy in a room full of girls not typing. But actually, when I started my first business at 23, I had a little word processor. I used to be a private investigator and a bailiff, and it was the best thing that I ever did, typing, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. I was always a grafter. I was always very entrepreneurial. From the age of, I think 12 or 13, my dad was a hairdresser, and he also had a clothing boutique and a shop in West London, in Fulham and North End Road, and he had lots of stock left over, and they were like sweatshirts. And he said, if you sell these sweatshirts, you can go halves. And I was, as you know, I'm quite small. I haven't grown that much. I had a black bag full of a bin liner of sweatshirts at the age of 12 or 13. I went door to door knocking, and I was selling these sweatshirts. Wow. I was selling these sweatshirts for a pound. I think I had about 20. I sold them all, and I came back, and he couldn't believe it. And I think that was kind of like I'd always been quite outgoing, quite confident in that sense, and I think that
Yeah.
put me in good stead for my later life of my
What do you
career.
think? What do you think imparted that in you? Why you were outgoing? I mean, we sometimes talk about people are born like that, but I tend to think of people are made like that.
Yeah, I think I was made like it really. I was quite cheeky. I've got a very strong determination. When someone says you can't do this, you can't do that, I had lots of people saying that, and I didn't come from a comfortable background. My parents didn't have that much money or whatever, but I'd always been a grafter. I'd always had jobs, any money that I wanted. I got a bit of pocket money or whatever, like £1 a week or whatever it was. I can't even remember now, but I wanted to earn my money. So I always worked. I worked after school sometimes. I worked in shops at weekends. I had a car wash round. I remember at 13 or 14. This is how old we are, Jim. I think you're a touch older than me.
Yeah.
I used to clean cars when I was in Brighton. I had a car cleaning round, and I used to clean. This is how people can't believe it, and my kids laugh at me. Inside and out of a car, I used to charge £2 or something. We used to go round to various different cars, and in the local area, and do a car cleaning round. So
I thought that was a going rate right now.
I know. Yeah, no, it's 15 quid, I think. Yeah, I know. But now, you say anything to your kids, £2, they just laugh at you. And then you know what kids are like now, Jim. We talked about it the other day. You have to effectively bribe them to do things.
Yeah. I think my father had worked it out. He used to throw money in the back garden in the ground, and then we would find it, and then all of a sudden we were convinced that we would find more money, and we used to dig the whole garden up.
And then you start looking at leaves on trees to think it was growing on trees. I do remember my dad was quite fun. I've got my dad. I think I've got quite a lot of my dad's personality in me. And ironically, my dad, who is 78, still works for me at Landlord Action. Ironically. Yeah. He goes to serve all the notices. He goes in his freedom pass and serves the notices when landlord. He loves it. He loves to get out of the house. But I remember when he used to come home from work, and he used to be quite fun. And I've got 3 sisters. There's a bit of an age gap, but me and my older sister, he used to have some change, and he'd go scramble and he'd throw it on the floor, and we'd all fight each other trying to pick the money up. So we used to wait for him to come home from work.
Yeah. So it sounded like childhood went quite well for you. I mean, high school. Yeah. So high school, when you gravitate toward high school, was that any different for you, or did it?
Yeah, secondary school. The problem I had, and I still got it today, I was quite good at coursework, but I was really poor at exams. I couldn't remember things. I'm still bad like that now. I've got quite bad memory, so and that always let me down. And I did the last year of O levels before GCSEs. Yeah. And I wish I did GCSEs because a lot of part of it was coursework, and I was pretty good at coursework. Yeah, I was pretty engaged. But I do remember, if I didn't like a subject, I would just switch off. I just, I had no interest. I think we're all the same. I remember I did a science exam. Was it a science or biology exam or something like that? I think I got 10% or something. And, I think one of the questions was, why is spinach good for you? And I can distinctly remember I said, because Popeye eats it. And that was in my answer. So I wasn't really destined for a lot of qualifications. I literally just wanted to leave school and go and work. And obviously, and I did. I literally started my 31st of May was my birthday. I started work straight. I found a job straight after my last exam, my O-level exam. Didn't even know what my results were, and I got a job. Yeah, full-time job. And that was in a law firm.
And do you think that was a case of just sheer determination?
Yeah, I think it was. I just wanted to work. I'd always wanted to work. I was a grafter. I mean, at 15, I worked at the Grand Hotel in Brighton. My sister was reservations manager, and she got me a job there. And I think it was on £3.75 an hour, which I thought was really good money. It was quite good money then, believe it or not. And I used to graft. I think I did once. I did a 14-hour, 15-hour shift or something like that. And I used to work in the restaurant doing silver service, and then I did room service. And I used to get tips. I remember Cannon and Ball, I served, and a few different. They didn't give me a tip, actually, mind you. And I served quite a few people. And it was quite good fun, actually, working in the Grand Hotel. But I did that as a job. And then I wanted, believe it or not, I wanted to get into fast food management. Don't know why, but I had some obsession. I worked in a burger bar when I was 13, and I quite thought that it'd be quite good managing a fast food restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, my grandfather, who's no longer with us, he had the first Wimpy takeaway in London, which was in Moorgate years ago, but that just by coincidence. But I, to be honest, I didn't want to wear the uniform, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to go for Wimpy or McDonald's. And I saw a job for an outdoor clerk in a firm, one of the biggest solicitors in Sussex, actually, called Don Milam and Haddock, as an outdoor clerk. And it was basically going to court, issuing, doing admin stuff, just the usual stuff. And I went in for the job, got the job, and loved it. I was only there for about 3 years. And then I got a job in London in 1990. Work as a litigation executive, but at that young age, from 16 to 19, I really had a lot of confidence. I did my first court hearing before a judge, a district judge, that is, at 16, which was quite unheard of then. Because I had the confidence. When I had the confidence to speak and communicate, I was doing that before a judge. When I do a hearing, like a really simple debt recovery case, and then I started, I worked in, in that recession in those times of 88, 90, when the interest rate was 14, 15%, we had this conversation when I saw you, and we used to do mortgage repossession hearings. And I did 12 hearings. I was 17, 12 hearings in one day once, going in and out of court, because obviously you remember those times, really high unemployment and a really high interest rate. And so I was, and we used to do all the hearings. So I'd do a hearing and do repossessions. It wasn't the nicest thing, repossessing people's houses and making people bankrupt. But I that was my background. It was debt recovery.
How did you manage to? Did you just throw mud against the wall and hope for the best and just keep applying for jobs? Because I stayed in jobs quite a long time. So I got that job, and then I wanted to move back to London. I saw a better job doing it was a litigation executive, and I'd done my first year legal execs, but I was never going to be a solicitor. And ironically, when I was at the solicitors, when I started the solicitors in London, it was in Camden, called Cornelian Co. I went from a big law firm to a one-man band, and I was the right-hand man of the managing partner. So I do probate, conveyancing, I do litigation. I even did crime. I did sitting behind counsel. I remember at the age of, so I joined that law firm when I was 18, and at 19, a year later, this law firm used to have a really big office in Bethnal Green, and they actually used to act. We used to act for the Cray brothers and lots of East End gangsters, and doing criminal defence for them. And I remember I had to go and sit behind counsel once at the Old Bailey on a guy that was getting done for armed robbery. He was a 17-year-old kid who had a replica gun, and he was holding up a tube. And I had to sit behind counsel, which was basically just taking notes for a barrister. So I was at the Old Bailey. I was 19 years old, and I'd done quite a few hearings by then, but I didn't know anything about crime. I just knew litigation, and civil work. And the barrister didn't turn up. No, the barrister turned up, and the guy was remanded in custody. And then it worked out that he was a juvenile, and supposedly we had to make a bail application. But the judge, the barrister, had left the Old Bailey. Yeah. So when I was in the cell, I was talking to this guy who was literally 2 years younger than me. He was 17, I was 19. I was told by the judge's clerk, you have to make a bail application. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But I knew that if I just stood up before the judge, he'd give me bail because they asked me to do it. So I had to stand up before an Old Bailey judge who had to give me right of audience, because you have to be a barrister to go before the judge. And I remember him saying to me, he goes, how are you? How are you? Are you okay to do this? I said, yeah. He goes, how old are you? I said, I'm just turned 19. Because you do know you're one of the youngest people to do a hearing before an Old Bailey judge. I was like a bit daunting. I got the application, but I'd always had that confidence. And I think that really put me in good stead for my later life, which was to be able to do the public speaking, and I'm sure we'll come on to that public speaking in the media. So what advice would you give the younger people today? about, what they should do and how they should do things. Is it the case that, stick in with your exams and all the rest of it? Or do you think tenacity and discipline and consistency and just keeping going for it and swinging for the fence every day is more important?
I think, what you have to do, you have to have self-belief in your ability. I had that. I had belief. I had lots of people that knocked me over the years, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. We didn't have, we're going to sound like old farts now, aren't we? We didn't have the distractions of the electronics. And I remember I had to save up for my first computer, which was a ZX Spectrum. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I didn't even have one. I couldn't afford one.
Oh, here we go. We're going to get the violin out for you now, Jim, aren't we? I grafted. I had to save up for mine.
Yeah, I had to do that as well. I had to work.
And the first computer was a ZX81. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do actually. Manic Miner was the game I played at my friend's house all the time.
All right. So yeah. So there's a lot more distractions. I used to love playing football. I played football. I was quite a good player when I was younger. Saturday and Sundays, and I trained twice in the week. Yeah, because I wasn't on the computer. I used to love playing football. And when I started getting older, at one stage, I played football. I played cricket. I played table tennis. I played almost county level for table tennis, and I boxed. And when I was 17, when I was living in Brighton, I boxed for 6 months. That's when I first started boxing, and I boxed in the same gym as Chris Eubank did, called the King Alfred. And I remember at that age when I was doing it, I was quite enjoying it. Got to a level of doing sparring and all that stuff. And then the guy said to me, he goes, you can't do these other sports if you want to be dedicated. And I wasn't dedicated because I was doing everything like that. That was at 17. But yeah, when I joined the solicitors, I set my first little side business up, which was a process serving company and private investigation company. And I used to do jobs on the side while working at the solicitor. So in the evening, I'd have to hand deliver documents. And you charge someone 80 quid to go and deliver a document somewhere and do a witness statement. So that was when I first started doing. That was my first little side business. And then as time went on, I started doing. I did nightclub promoting as well. So I used to run a club night in London at a club.
Here's a question for you. Do you feel that your lack of education drove you to be more entrepreneurial?
Definitely. 100%, Jim. I felt like, I didn't want to go university. Didn't interest me one bit, right? Yeah. Just wanted to work. I think the only downside that I've got, and I do regret, is I didn't travel when I was younger. That's one regret I had because I always worked. Mm-hmm. So, when I have friends that went to Australia, went in Thailand, and they did the traveling things, I was envious because I missed out on that. I mean, yes, you can travel now, but you do it, obviously, you do it in a better style when you don't, end up in hostels and all that stuff. So, yeah, it was the drive and determination. And I think the work ethic, my dad was a real grafter. So I had that, I think I had that inbuilt in me, but I was always, my mind was always thinking, oh, that's quite, and I always looked at a different angle and had a little strategy in my head. And to be honest, I'll be very honest with you. I think if I hadn't have gone into working in a law firm, I could have sailed close to the edge, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a fine line.
I had friends that friends that ended up in prison. I had friends that went the other side. I could have gone the other side.
Yeah.
But because I worked in a law firm, it kept me where I knew the line was. And I think that really helped me, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, James. How are you? James Watson's an investor, Paul.
Hi, James.
I know James very well. James, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them. So we've gone on the journey, but then the thing that popped into my mind there now, as you said, I'm regret I never travelled the world. But then, is it no case that I'll do today what others will not to achieve tomorrow what others cannot? Is this the case?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's loads of places I want to go to, and I just haven't got. The problem is, Jim, and I think you and I are quite alike. We're quite comfortable, whatever, but we're workaholics.
Yeah,
I'm a workaholic. Even if I won the lottery or I was a multi-millionaire, I'd still work because I get bored.
Yep.
I'd get bored. you know, when I'm sure we come to, I started a business in Spain further down the line. I'll tell you about that as well when I had Landlord Action. But my mind is non-stop.
Yeah.
You know, I do find it hard. I mean, obviously, we talked about this. Me drinking Red Bull doesn't help, Jim, obviously. So I'll tell you.
I couldn't believe that. I was thinking, wait a minute.
I know. I don't need it. I don't need Red Bull. I do have the sugar-free one, if that's any, and the zero one. But it's funny. I'll tell you a funny story. I had a guy that used to work for me. So, you know, obviously, one of my brands is Landlords, and we run. And he wrote to a marketing exec on LinkedIn for Red Bull, saying, our guy, you know, he loves drinking Red Bull. He's a big Red Bull, whatever. And the guy came back and said, that's really pleased that Mr. Shamplina loves drinking our product, but we only sponsor elite sportsmen. It was quite funny, actually. But yeah.
So school, solicitors, next steps for you after that? What happened after that then? The
solicitors, yeah, that's good. So I bought my first flat at 23. And then I must have been 24, 25. I left I worked for the solicitors for about 6 years. And then I left the solicitors and I became a certified bailiff. So a guy promised me the world. I went to go and work with him in a certified bailiffs. And I got let down, really, because at that time I left a job and he promised you'd have these contracts. I'd earn I'd earn some good money. And it didn't really happen. We were collecting council tax and business rates in Berkshire. And it was a bailiff, but I got my bailiff certificate. So then after that, at that point, most probably that was maybe one of the lowest points that I had. I was skint, absolutely skint, and I had to rent my flat out.
How did you manage to deal with that then?
I'm versatile. I just ducked and dived. You know, I was behind in my mortgage, and I was struggling, and I went to go and move with my mate. I rented out my flat. It was in 1994, I think it was, 95, something like that. Rented my flat out just to cover the mortgage. I paid 40 grand for my first flat in northwest London, one bed flat. So, I mean, it's worth about 300 grand now. Didn't keep it, obviously. And basically what happened was when I got my bailiff certificate, I thought, right, I'm quite versatile here. What I will do is I'll set my own business up. And I was actually living with an ex-girlfriend at the time. And her family went and said, "Oh, it's not going to work. It won't work." This, that. I said, "Look, So I started working from her front room. Her brother was a letting agent. He was working from home as well. Yeah. And then because I was versatile, Jim, so it was called Shamplina and Associates. That was my business. And what happened was I was doing process serving for solicitors. I was doing court hearings. I was doing surveillance. I was doing landlord and tenant evictions. So that's when I started doing evictions in the law firm. I issued my first possession.
How did that come about? Did you knock on some doors and say, "I've set a business"? And
I started marketing. I did marketing. You know, I had limited budget. I had contacts. I started hustling. I put adverts out. I used to meet people in McDonald's, and they'd be wearing dark glasses, and I'd pass them information. I wasn't a prime investigator. Most private investigators, they come in from a police background. I came from a different background. So I was really versatile, and I did bailiffing. So I'd do commercial distress. So you go to a commercial property, so I'd nick, I'd be nicking a living. That's what I was doing. Yeah. But out of that, and where I was based, I met my old business partner that I set up Landlord Action with. I had a little tiny office and a serviced office literally around the corner from my flat, because I started working from my flat. And then I thought, when I moved to this serviced office, it was tiny. It was absolutely tiny, but it felt great. And I had my little word processor and I was typing. I was doing all these different jobs. And then it was a big serviced office block. And then I'd network with people. I was really good at networking. And, you have to network, and you're really good at networking as well. And then I was getting work, and I was doing debt recovery work. So it was all varied. But I'd issued my first possession case in 1991 when I worked in the solicitors. So I knew how to issue corporates in. And of course, buy to let wasn't very busy. It wasn't big then. I'm talking about the years from 95 to 99. I was working for myself. And then I met my business partner in my office block. He was a portfolio landlord in Luton. He owned about 50 flats, and he was a letting agent. And we used to play football with each other. We were mates. We used to go out, this, that, whatever. And I used to help him. I said to him, why he was paying 2.5, 3 grand a case in 98, 99 to a firm of solicitors. I said to him, why are you paying that money? I'll do it all in for 1,200 quid. And I used to work with a firm of solicitors that used to go on record. But I draft the paper, serve a notice, issue corporate, and I did it in 3 steps, fixed fees. Yeah. And that was how we started. And Johnny Chipek, God bless his soul, he died now. We thought it was a really good idea, and we saw something, and then we went into business together. He actually put the money up. I didn't have any money. I had hardly any money, but he put the initial investment up, I think about 30, 40 grand or whatever. We set the business up. We sat in a room trying to think of the name, the eviction company, and then we came up with Landlord Action, and we set the business up end of 99, 2000. And as you know,
it's interesting that you say you had nothing, you had no money and no resources, but you found someone that was able to do that. So it's about partnership working, isn't it?
It is about partnership working, most definitely. So, he got his investment back within 6 months or a year, whatever. But I was always the graft. He wasn't, because he was comfortable. He had his property portfolio. So I was the proper grafter. So we took an office out, and it was just me and him. And I remember when we started it off, we did a massive, it was literally the time the internet started, really, give or take. Really fresh in Google. So I got let my dog out in the garden. This is proper live stuff. Lock him out.
Just talk amongst yourselves, everybody.
Talk amongst yourself. He's a very noisy dog. I've got a cockapoo, which is not great for my profile. Can you imagine a cockapoo? People think that I should have a pit bull or something going down the street. When they see me in the TV program. So I actually evicted 23 illegal Chinese. It was Chinese. There were these Chinese immigrants at the time in a 3-bed house in northwest London. And I did it all from fixed fees, and he couldn't believe how cheap it was. And then that's how we started Landlord Action, in fixed fees. And then we sent out, I think it was 5,000 brochures, and we just got a good response from letting agents. And then what put us on the map, Jim, was a journalist from the Evening Standard called Mirabar Halal. She's a really renowned property journalist.
Yeah.
She called us up. She said, this is fantastic for landlords. And she wrote a half-page editorial in the Evening Standard. Now, the Evening Standard at that time was like one of the biggest papers. And the heading had a blessing for landlords. And we just got swamped on the phone. It was just me and him.
Yeah.
And then you just, you could, I think what it is, a lot of people, when, you're planning, you're trying to, you put systems together, and now obviously property tech and technology and sometimes you've got to fly with something, and then you deal with it, and then you put systems in place, because people forget that. Now if you talk about businesses, they want funding, they want to do this, want to do that. You need a lot of money to market. One thing that I was good at I was good at marketing and understanding PR very early on,
Yeah, that made sense. And I would like to point out at this point in time that, we know that eviction is the last course of action, isn't it?
Of course, most of it. Of course, it is. It is most probably. It's a massive last resort.
Yeah.
And no one wants to evict a tenant. And that's why we started a mediation business further down the line.
Yeah. So this is round about the time where we met, because I was the chairman of the National Landlord Association.
That's right.
And a local landlord association in Fife as well. So that was the next journey for you. You've done a huge amount of traveling and knocking on doors and to get to where you are so far. But even on that journey where you first started, you've put an immense amount of hours in to get some.
Yeah, I have. And I'm really pleased you mentioned that. And it is all about graft. I reckon I must have done about. I actually spoke to David Cox, who was the CEO of Arla. I saw him at the Negotiator Awards. I must have done about. I reckon he said you must have done loads more. I reckon I've done about 600-700 talks. I must have done. I can't make. And now obviously online. But I used to have. It was before Zoom, and it was before obviously.
Yeah.
Online Zoom.
You had to go and physically visit somebody. You had to stay overnight.
It was physical visits. So I remember you came up and asked me to speak. We weren't doing anything in Scotland. We didn't have a Landlord Action in Scotland, but I thought it was good. I was all about education. Yeah. And enlightening and doing that. And I must have met you, Jim, in 2000. We worked it out the other day, 2004, was it? Maybe 2005. Like yep. It was just after landlord registration came out in Scotland. And I think there was about 200 people there. Just on the public speaking, it was natural to me. And I think why it felt natural to me, and I think if you go back to the days of when I was going before judges, I had to have the confidence. Yeah. And I'm not the most articulate of people. And my English grammar could be a bit better. Yeah. And I'm quite aware of that as well. But what I try and do is I try and keep everything really real. And I think, to be honest, my success has been my passion, my self-belief.
So when you were in the beginning, were you very fearful about things? Did you have?
Well, when I did my first talk, I was bricking it. Yeah. My first talk, I did my first TV program and first talk in 2001, 20 years ago.
Okay.
I've never had any media training. I've had radio broadcasting training. Never had any public speaking. I've trained people in public speaking. Yeah. And I think I still get a buzz now of doing live events. So, if I do a live radio interview or a live TV interview, I get much more out of that than actually doing pre-record stuff that I do on the series. When I'm doing a live, when I was at the Negotiator on Friday, and I did a live panel session with Robert Peston and a few people in the industry and stuff. I get buzz off that, but I remember the days where I remember going to Wrexham, travelling 4 hours on the train, going to Wrexham Council and doing a talk to 8 people and coming all the way back, and then being at work the next day at 7 a.m. Done all that. I used to drive up to Manchester, do a talk for Property Investors Network to 50 landlords, drive all the way back. Yeah. When you work for yourself, you have to graft. Yeah. And you have a work ethic, and also from the days when I was a private investigator, I used to have to be up really early to do surveillances and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
What's the most difficult situation you've ever been in?
Oh, blimey. What do you mean?
In terms of private investigator and stuff like that, you found yourself in compromising positions where you think,
I've had a few. Look, the reality is, I've had a gun pulled on me. I had to repossess a racehorse in Newmarket once, and the horse trainer came out. We were repossessing his horse because repossessing a horse that was owned by a fraudster, and we had to get the armed response unit. I've done bailiffing before, where I've been chased. I've had someone chase me in a car with a baseball bat. I've had some, I've had some quite fractious moments. You don't forget stuff like that. I think the funniest story was I've even hid inside an industrial wheelie bin as well. Have I told you that story?
No.
Do you want to hear it?
Yep.
So I had to serve a divorce petition on a guy in southwest London, and his wife was trying to divorce him. He was been evading service to serve the paperwork, but we knew that he had OCD, and he always threw his rubbish out between 7 and 7:30 in the morning. This is God's honest truth. And I remember at the time, when I was skint, when I was doing it, I had this mini Metro. I paid 300 quid for it, and I brought my mate with me, because when you do surveillance, you have to have 2 people. One person to watch, especially with driving stuff. But anyway, so cut a long story short, I had to surprise the guy, and it was in blocks of flats, and you couldn't get in the communal parts. So I hid inside the bin that he throws his rubbish outside his flats. So I crouched down in this industrial wheelie bin. You know, the big wheelie bins you get outside flats. with all the shit and everything inside it. And I crouched down. I was in this bin for about 20 minutes. And he came out and I jumped out of his dustbin. Can you imagine at 7:30 in the morning? And the guy's face, my mate took a picture of it because we wanted evidence. And I served him. And I'm gutted because I lost the picture. Been a great picture to keep. So that's some of the maddest stuff that I've done. Doing surveillances. I used to do. I went to Egypt once with 24 hours notice. I had to serve a CEO of a bank in Cairo for a high court writ for $8 million from a shipping company, and I went in with a translator. And it's a bit different to try and meet the owners of banks now, because obviously you wouldn't be able to. But in Cairo, it was a tiny little bank, and I made out I was an English builder wanted to put loads of money into the bank, so he put a meal out for me. I had a translator, and just when we're tucking into the main course, he said, "Let's talk business," and I served the writ on him. And I ran out of the bank, and I got chased partly in the streets of Cairo. It was like something out of a TV ad. And I went back to the hotel, and the client said, "We need you to go back there." I said, "There's no way I'm going to go back there." And then I had I had a dodgy stomach from eating loads of food. So that was that was a bit of an experience. But yeah, I used to do some mad things. I mean, now it's a bit easier, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you do stuff on the front line, on that private investigation stuff and the process serving stuff, and the bailiffing stuff, it is real frontline stuff. And you see stuff on the TV programs and stuff, and it's all real, nothing staged.
Is it difficult sometimes some of the stuff that you actually have to comprehend and you have to do? I know sometimes you just have to do it because
I mean look the eviction stuff people forget. I mean, I will go, and when the series is out, I get recognised more. Yeah, so people can have a selfie or whatever, but just randoms, I forget half the time because for me, I'm just. I think also part of my success was I'm just very real. I'll have a chat with anyone, and I'll speak to someone in the same monotone, in the same way.
Yeah.
If I speak to a guy in the street that might be homeless or whatever, and I'll chat to him and maybe give him a five, and just say what's it to someone who's a CEO. I'll just be very natural, and I think that's important. And you have to be yourself. But yeah, people think that I do evictions all the time. I don't. Yeah. I've got a company with 16 staff, and for Landlord Action, which I later sold, but I stayed on. Now I'm chief commercial officer at Hamilton Fraser, as you know. But I did the media. The only reason I did the media, only reason I did public speaking was for one reason only, and that was to generate more business for my company. And that was it.
And then how did the media thing come about then? And how was that? Did somebody just appear, or did you actually approach them?
No. I'll tell you what it was. We got a call. Me and Johnny got a call from Carlton TV then. That's how long ago, 2001 or 2002. They said, we want to do a TV program, or it could be 2003. I can't remember. It's so long ago. We want to do a TV program about buy-to-let, about how busy and blah, blah. And would you feature on us? And I said, yeah, we're featuring on it. I said to Johnny or whatever. And we had a little back office, and it was files everywhere. We only had 2 staff. There was 4 of us. We're tiny staff. And then it was files everywhere, and we were getting busier. And then I thought, right, impressions. This is really important. So I got 2 friends in. One of them's an actress, and I got another friend in. So we made the office busier. And I remember when they were filming us, they were asking us questions about the market, and this is what happens if it goes wrong with buy-to-let and all that type of stuff. And then I'd arrange for friends to call me during the filming on the phone.
Right.
To make us look busy.
Yep.
and my mate was going, Paul, you're such a tosser. I was like, yes, Landlord Action, can I help you? And all that stuff. So it was quite funny. It was quite funny. And that's when we started doing it. And then after that, I started doing more. I mean, if I forget about the stuff I've done. I mean, Nightmare Tenants, Slum Landlords is the biggest program I've done because it's running for 6 series on Channel 5. I did Tenants from Hell on ITV. That was a 1-hour special. That was massive. I've done War at the Door. I've done Inside Outs. I've done Meet the Landlord. I got a call actually to do. I've done 3 Tonight programs. Yeah, I've done about 4 insider. I forget a lot of the stuff. A lot of them are one-offs and stuff. And they're interviewed, loads of BBC Breakfast News and all that type of stuff. But I got a call actually on Friday. They want to do some film. ITV, the Tonight program, want to do some filming. They want to do some filming in February about evictions, about the about post-pandemic and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do a lot of one-offs. But I prefer radio.
This is probably in the run-up to the suspension being possibly lifted at the end of March.
So they want a backstory and stuff. But I do. But and then I started doing radio. And then really the thing that I most enjoyed was I did an LBC program for 13 weeks with Clive Ball. It was called The Property Hour. And at the time, I was working with Direct Line. I was still working at Landlord Action, but I was working with Direct Line. And I just loved it. I loved the life. So I prefer radio than TV.
Yeah.
And then you're supposed to say, yeah, you got a face for radio. Everyone says that, right? But it's because it's live. I love it.
Yeah. Live, I mean, I've got to admit, I think live's a lot better. I think there's more interaction. Anything could happen. People make comments. I mean, there's Jeanette come on and said, thanks very much, Jeanette. If you've got any questions, Jeanette, please feel free to ask. She said excellent there. So live, but is there a golden list somewhere that you've managed to get onto, or is it the fact that people now know you, or is it you've networked all these years and you're on people's lists?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm on media lists.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, when I sold Landlord Action, I wanted to do other stuff. I didn't want to be the eviction guy, right? Yeah. So I had loads of ideas and stuff. And then what happened was, with Landlord Action, unfortunately, my previous partner had died, and then I carried on. I carried on running Landlord Action, and then what happened was. I met Eddie Hooker, who's the CEO of Hamilton Fraser, and I'd become quite friendly with him because we had a networking group called the Landlord Syndicate, and then basically I started talking with him, and I said I want to go in another direction. I had other partners in Landlord Action, and it took about a year for the deal to happen, and for my other partners to leave the property. Leave the business. So I got distracted then, leave the business. And then basically I came on board with Hamilton Fraser, and, now and that was in 2017 we completed. And now I have, my job was commercial and looking at sales and being in charge of education and media. And then in last January, I can't remember now. I went on the board of the company, so I'm chief commercial officer.
So throughout that process as well, you've been quite heavily involved in possibly having an influence in shaping legislation for landlords.
Yes, I have. Yeah. So basically, what happened was, I've done must have done about five or maybe 10 or whatever consultations I've been involved in, and then there's working groups that splinter off that. So I've always done campaigning for landlords, always have done. And that's what I know. And it is nice to get feedback from landlords say, you do a great job and that. And it is quite nice to hear. I mean, I got voted for best best seminar speaker for the Landlord Investment Show in 2019. And to be honest, that was been most probably the highlight of my career, because I got 45% of the vote from landlords, and that meant more to me, But yeah, legislation. I was heavily involved with the squatting law that changed in 2012. We did a campaign. So if a landlord owns a residential property and a squatter breaks into the second property, from the 1st of September 2012, it became a criminal act. So the squatters could be put in prison for up to 6 months and £5,000. So I did that. I've always been involved in campaigning for client money protection, and Hamilton Fraser been, forward the way on that. And then the Deregulation Act as well. So I gave evidence at Parliament relating to retaliation eviction. And obviously that was the start of everything that changed, obviously, with regard to much more of having tenants' rights and obviously having a safer home. And especially in England, I mean, and it splintered off, obviously, but 2014, 2015, when we talked about rogue landlord list, rogue letting agent list. So I gave evidence, but I helped, had some input in the input on the content of the Form 6A, the Section 21 notice, and also 2 ideas that I put forward via my team at Landlord Action actually ended up becoming a law. So Section 21 or Form 6A has a 6-month lifespan. That was our idea. And to serve it after 4 months, that was my idea as well, because there was a lot of bad practice that was happening where you'd have a tenant that would come into a property, Jim.
Yep.
They signed the tenancy agreement. Yeah, I'm going to live in the property. And, ideally a landlord should want them to stay as long as possible. We had this conversation. Yeah. But then, by the way, I'm serving a Section 21 on you at the same time to end the contract 6 months down the line. It was terrible practice.
Yeah.
Bad practice. It was laziness. Mm-hmm. So they stopped all that. And it was only better because tenants, quite rightly, should have
security of tenure.
They should feel a sense of security for a tenure, most definitely.
I absolutely agree. I think that's the right way forward. I mean, I'd noticed that as well. It was a common practice as well in Scotland to actually issue the notice to quit at the same time of actually issuing the lease. And you basically send a message out to your tenant straight away that you're on a sticky wicket straight away.
Yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong. And obviously on the back of that, and I talked about this at the panel debate. Section 21 is going to be going, could be about 3 years. But that's going to go. I know you had it. Obviously, your equivalent went. They have to strengthen the grounds. I've been heavily involved in that consultation.
Which is, to be honest, Section 21, and so everybody knows, it's no fault eviction in Scotland. But no fault eviction in Scotland, it really doesn't matter. The reality is, you don't really want to evict anybody. That's the reality. If they're paying their rent and they're looking after the property and they're not antisocial towards their neighbours or anything like that, then there is no other reason that you'd want to evict a tenant, unless you wanted it back because you wanted to move in or you wanted to sell the property. But in our law, it's all covered by the grounds. For
that's
eviction
right.
Anyway.
But you have to have a court system that works with it, and that's
absolutely
that's the $6 million question. You have to have investment. They have announced over £300 million investment in the English court, so that's good. They need to recruit more judges. We have a bailiff shortage. Obviously, you use sheriffs up there. You need to strengthen the grounds, but there is a lot of landlords that are going to exit. But there's a lot of landlords coming back into the market. There's a lot of big institutional investors that are coming in. I know loads of big heavyweight investors that are buying up and wanting to buy. But then
equally, you talk about being the landlord's friends, but ultimately as well, you're actually a tenant's friend because you stand up for the rights of tenants as well. When it's not right because of slum landlords.
Yes, I do, and I think we do. I mean, that's why I do the TV program, because I make sure it's a balanced program. Obviously, Nightmare Tenants, Slum Landlords. We show on the TV program the extreme cases, and most of them are landlords that are self-managing. Yeah. They're not using letting agents, which is the problem. They're not referencing properly. They don't comply with compliance. They're desperate to put tenants in the property because they've got a mortgage pay, all that type of stuff, and they end up making loads of cock-ups. And then, of course, you show the councils that are going after slum landlords, but they're criminal landlords, and we had this conversation the other day. I mean, in Hamilton Fraser, not only do they own Landlord Action, we own Total Landlord Insurance, we own My Deposits, and you came to the event this week. We own Client Money Protect, we own the Property Redress Scheme. So we run 3 government schemes. And we have a whole lot of other businesses, and we have a mediation business, letting agent advice business. But one business that I am obviously also passionate about, which I oversee and run, one of the brands is Landlord Zone. And we bought Landlord Zone from Tom Entwistle, who was a good work colleague of mine in 2018. And we made it a breaking news landlord website. So it covers the whole of the UK. And property education is a must, in England, we're gonna have landlord redress, which is gonna happen. They want landlord registration. In England, I don't think you need that. I think landlord redress covers that, to be honest. But why shouldn't a tenant have redress against a self-managed landlord? They do against letting agents. I think there is an issue because when you have relationships that break down most of the time in a tenancy, it relates to communication. That's the most common scenario. you know, or landlords not carrying out repairs when they should have carried out repairs and all that stuff. But it's an industry. You know, I asked Patrick Harvey. You'll see when you were sitting next to him.
Yeah.
I was saying, you know, in Scotland, you know, and most probably the same answer will happen in England and Wales is, do you want to get rid of the small landlord? And his answer was no, wasn't it? They just got to be professional and think professional, and that's part of the problem.
It's to professionalise the organisation. The biggest issue for private landlords is most landlords actually own one or two properties, so it's not really the main focus of their attention. And the difficulty is, it's like what you said, self-managed. Self-managed is the problem, because there's a raft of legislation which they are completely unaware of, they have to comply with. And this is where we came back to saying that maybe there should be some sort of legislation which actually says that landlords can't self-manage anymore, and they have to actually get a qualified letting agent to look after it. But then that comes back to saying that qualified letting agents have to be properly qualified. I still don't think they are.
Well, they're not. I mean, look, we're going to have regulation of property agents in England. That's been kicked into the long grass a bit, but every letting agent will have to have a level 4, level 5 qualification. I agree with that. You know, we act for 20,000 letting agents. We're one of the biggest organisations across all our various brands. I think that's a good thing. I think you will see a lot of really small agents come out of the business because they won't be able to cope with the regulation, the extra cost, and all that type of stuff. You know, I get booked to do lots of events, to talk to investors, talk to landlords, but I also train letting agents up as well on how to attract more landlords to your business. So I go in, I do a pitch, I look at their business, we mystery shop, we do a whole lot of analysing with regard to their local market and what they do, because generally we talk on letting agents. And I know you're very proactive, Jim, and you which I think is really good. And obviously, you know, the Facebook Live and what you did in COVID with regard to doing the viewings and do talk through viewings. I think it's weird. I mean, COVID changed everyone and changed everything the way we work. I mean, I can talk on behalf of our company, Hamilton Fraser. We've got 235 staff. I remember the day before lockdown in our boardroom to senior management, I put my hand up. I said, guys, we have to interact and engage with our clients. No one knew what was going to happen. We didn't know it was going to be 18 months and all that type of stuff. But, you know, we got quite lucky, Jim, because we got an internal system called 8x8. It was like a Zoom system. We got it 6 months before, and it was our absolute godsend. So how we could communicate as a business, because I've got a man cave at the bottom of my garden. And I turned that into, it's a games room and whatever. And I turned that into an office. But I admit, I really struggled the first month, 6 weeks of lockdown. I didn't know what was going on. This is from someone that's used to grafting and is all over.
I know how you feel, because I felt exactly the same way. I literally, when everybody says, "Oh, we need to go on furlough," so we were on furlough, and the next minute, 2 days later, I said, "There's no way I could go on furlough. This will drive me crazy." I just took myself off it straight away and kept working.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're working. So what I did to cope, I have to train. I train 6 times a week, and as you know, I've got a fight coming up in a couple of weeks, and you know, and I have fitness trainers. And I train at 2 different gyms, and it keeps that's what keeps me going, really. But then, you know, I thought, blimey, no disrespect to my family, I thought, blimey, I'm going to be stuck here for 6 weeks with my family. I need to get out. And then the gym shut. I thought, shit, what am I going to do? So I managed to buy a bike. There was a bike shop open. I bought a bike. I started doing like 5, 10. I don't know, you're a big cycling band. And I did it. I don't mind doing it or whatever. I'm not a big bike band. I do spinning classes. I do 4 or 5 spinning classes a week. And then I was going to go, and then I ordered a spinning bike, and I bought one for like 400 quid. And it was absolute pile of crap. I had to send it back. I didn't want to drop 2.5 grand on a Peloton because I didn't know how long lockdown was going to be. So I tried to train at home, and I couldn't really, but I did the bike thing. But what I did as a coping mechanism, because I wasn't on the board, Jim. So basically, I went back in to step down. I stepped back in to run Landlord Action when the eviction ban took place. It was really, really tough times and stuff like that. But what I did was a bit like what I'm doing with you now.
Yeah.
I was doing an event every day or every other day. People just reaching out to me. And I reckon I did about 50 webinars or Facebook Lives or podcasts, whatever. And I did a main event a day.
Yep.
And that's what kept me going, really.
I just produced tons and tons of content. It was nothing to do with property, how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with the kids in lockdown, how to make the best of this and the best of that. And that's kind of how I kept myself going. But
I think the homeschooling, your kids are a bit older than mine, but the homeschooling was quite tough because it was just, my kids were in their pajamas all day, right?
Yeah.
And they were saying, have you done your work? Have you done your work? And I'm trying to concentrate to do my work and engage with staff and whatever. Some funny stories when I was doing webinars, like you saw with my dog barking and whatever, all real stuff. I had one webinar. I had about because you know what we also did with Landlord Zone, we set and with the letting agents, I was doing CP accredited courses for 25 quid plus VAT. And they were getting CPD points. We had about 400 people on, and I started doing all these different courses, coming out with all this different content. But I was doing one webinar. I think it was for a letting agent, and my daughter came down in her pajamas, and she's only 11 or 10. She was 10, 11, and she goes, "Dad, I've asked you for the third time. Are you going to do this TikTok with me or not?" She was like, "I'm going to go at me," and I was saying, "I'm alive on a webinar." It was quite funny, So. Yeah, everyone's normal. Everyone's just trying to get through stuff, aren't they?
I know, exactly. We talked about, finally on this bit, you reported the success of Paul's incredible recovery. 90,000 in rent arrears from a single.
Oh yeah, that was one case. Yeah. So what we've done now, I mean, look, we haven't really. I know we're going to be running out of time, but COVID's changed everything. So everything's back to normal now. The notice period's back to normal. You're struggling in Scotland. You've still got 6-month notice periods. You've really, really had it hard. Look, rent arrears horrendous for landlords. Obviously, most of I mean, we've got we've got 2 people working full time in the debt recovery department, just collecting debt, and we're getting a lot of landlords now saying, "I want to enforce the money order so I can get a county court judgment," because the debts are too big. Beforehand, they were writing them off. I could swallow that, but you've got debts of over 12 months rent arrears.
Yeah,
so we're doing a lot.
For somebody that's only got 1 or 2 properties, that's a killer.
It's a killer. It's an absolute killer, Jim. So there's a lot more debt recovery, but we are really busy at Landlord Action. We had it hit. I mean, we also do aesthetic and cosmetic insurance, which is really weird. We've got loads of these different brands. Our core business is property insurance as well. So when the aesthetic and the Botox and the surgeons all stopped working, we took a hit, obviously, on the policies then, and also the eviction ban with Landlord Action.
Yeah,
we were still issuing cases. But in the last 4 months, we've taken on 3 more staff, 2 of which are solicitors. So we're up to 16 staff. And I always wanted, I had this conversation with you, Jim, maybe it might be another conversation off air. I always wanted to set up a Landlord Action. I mean, now Landlord Action is owned by Hamilton Fraser now, but I'm still a director. I always wanted to set up a Landlord Action in Scotland, and I never did. But I needed to find the right partner. I mean, Landlord Action, I think last week on one day alone, we had 22 new instructions in one day. So that's from landlords and letting agents. But yeah, it's great to be part of Hamilton Fraser. We're really an innovative company with some great people, and I can look at business opportunities. I work very closely with Eddie, who founded the business. Yeah. But it's great that I can now represent loads of brands rather than just one brand.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about this off air because we're coming up to the hour. But it's amazing when you think about your journey from the very beginning of no formal education, and yet you've landed here so far. Yeah. So the future, I mean, even bigger, possibly. And yet that was from someone that had no formal education. It just grafted and grafted and grafted. And what does that tell our youth of today? That, just keep going, just keep swinging for the fence.
Keep going. You know what? I do a bit of mentorship for a few people as well. Yeah. I think that's quite important. Try and look to someone who you aspire to. Hopefully, someone can give you some time. But just on a finishing note, I've had people that are saying a lot of my time, you can't do this, you can't do that. I like to prove people wrong. Yeah, I've got a lot of self-belief, a lot of determinations. I've been very, very versatile. Always be versatile. you know, and I've had failures, you know, I've had scenarios, I've made wrong business decisions on my journey, without a doubt, you know,
Yeah.
I've taken a hit financially, I've made mistakes, I've gone through partnership mistakes. It's been tough. It's been tough,
Yeah.
but you learn by it. You learn by
Excellent.
it, and you see how resilient you are. And what you do is you get to a level where you only want to deal with certain people, kind of like close to you, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, forget about the open market. Trust is a real big thing, you know,
Mhm.
and you want to make sure someone's got your back. And one thing about me, I've always been very loyal. You know, I'm quite loyal like that. But
Yeah.
self-determination, desire, passion, and being a workaholic, and drinking loads of Red Bull, maybe.
It's it's but then the reality is, we talk about it quite a lot. It's taking massive action. It's not just thinking I'll maybe get away with this or get away with that. It's just like keeping going and persevering every single time to achieve
Yeah,
what you want to
definitely.
achieve.
How many times, Jim, has someone said to you, we talked about your story, you
Yeah.
know, your story is quite remarkable as well. But you know what it is? I've still got the passion now as I had
Yeah.
when I set the business up, you know, and I'm looking at other things. And, you know, I can say this that's why I'm working with Eddie Hooker. You know, he's a really good mate of mine. We've got a lot of things in common, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. We have a laugh. We take the piss out of each other. You
Yeah.
know, and I think you've got to be able to take the mickey out of yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously.
It is. I mean, you have to. You can never take yourself too seriously, because as soon as you start to do that, that's the beginning of the end, really.
No, of course
That's what
not.
it comes down to. And
Exactly.
it is actually just saying, look, you know, it's one of these things. Commercial reality is a big thing for me as well. You know, in practice, in theory, this is what should happen, but in commercial reality, this is what does happen. And you just have to follow commercial reality, and sometimes just say, walk away, leave it,
I
and
mean,
just
yeah.
move on to
I
the
mean,
next
look, Jim.
thing.
I've got look. Just quick. I mean, I remember one of my closest friends when I was 12 years old, 13 years old, is one of the biggest landlords in Brighton, and I could have done property with him early
Yeah.
2000s, and I was working with Landlord Action, and I only rent out a couple of properties, Jim, not a lot. I'm looking at buying in the Northwest. I'm looking now, 20 years down the line. That's a big regret for me. I
Yeah.
should have had a lot more property. Yes, it's paid off another way, because any money that I ploughed into Landlord Action, and it's got
Yeah.
me to where I have now, you know, so in that way. And my mate, I could have, you know, I could have gone on another journey, and I could have loads, you know, and done whatever with him and bought loads probably. So I think about it as a regret, but I wouldn't be sitting here talking with you now,
Yeah.
or being able to accomplish what I accomplished if I had gone down the other route.
Absolutely. And
About
I think
opportunities,
that
yeah.
the most successful people don't look back on regret.
No,
They leave it as a lesson to be learned,
correct.
and move on from there,
A lot of it's
and
about timing, Jim.
focus on their successes and what they want to achieve for the future. That's
Yeah,
really what it comes down to.
definitely. But I believe I want to give back. You know, I do this boxing event. We're raising money. You know, we've raised over 100 grand for our last few events that we've done.
Yeah.
So I do. I like to help people as well. I mean, obviously, you know, when I can, I think that's important. Try and
Boxing's a
mentor
big,
people.
massive thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I love boxing. So I go to all the big fights. I've got loads of boxing memorabilia. Look, I'll show you something. Wait here. This is live on the gym morning
Perfect.
slot. Hold on. Look at this. Oh. I've got loads of boxing memorabilia. Look at this. You'll like this one. How's that? Do you like that? Muhammad Ali sign knocking out Sonny Liston.
Wow.
Nice, isn't it? So I've bought a whole load of boxing memorabilia and loads of other memorabilia. So I donate it all to charity, and we auction it at our event.
Yeah.
We raise money and stuff. So you're going to have to come down to the next one. And
Fantastic.
actually, you don't drink, do you?
No.
No, you're a rarity. You're a Scotsman that doesn't drink. But if I put this event on in Scotland, I think I'd be bankrupt, because I put a free bar on, believe it or not, Jim.
Wow. You'd definitely be bankrupt. I've seen that happen before.
Maybe we could talk about a rumble with the agents in Scotland. We could do one up there.
Yeah, I'd be too terrified to get my head hit.
Oh, right. No, I don't like it. I mean, I'm fighting. I'm 50. I've turned 50 in May. I've been sparring. I mean, when you haven't sparred for quite a while, it gets harder.
Yeah.
This is my 6th fight, and I'm 5'4", so I'm very hard to match. So I'm always fighting taller people. So my last fight, I thought I'd go out with a bang, and I'll fight a guy who's 30.
Wow.
So I'm fighting a guy of 30, and he's 5'11". So that should be fun. But we're just going to have a move around. We're not. I have pre-warned him, so I don't want to go. I don't want to war. So I'm doing I'm doing the fight first off, getting it done. But I'm doing it all in aid of a local cancer charity to me in Barnet called Cherry Lodge Cancer Care. So they don't get any government funding and stuff. So you got to do your bit.
That is really, I mean, that's really what I focus on as well. It's giving back to the causes and charities that don't otherwise get the attention that other charities get. Definitely. You know, everybody's going to contribute to the big major charities and all the rest of it, but it's the local ones that actually struggle throughout this process and have struggled throughout the pandemic because they've got nothing. And that tends to be what I tend to focus on as well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Good, great stuff. Thanks very much for coming on the show, Paul.
No, I've really enjoyed it, Jim. It's been great. It's been really good. It's been.
And we're gonna have a wee chat off air. I'm just going to end this now, and thanks everybody else for watching. If you've got any questions later on, please feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll answer them later on. More than happy to do that. And until next time, Paul. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you next week.